How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are back on the tier maker, and YCSs are coming up. The 250th YCS is happening at 3 places at once, are coming up this weekend from when I'm recording it. And after that, we are going into national season until the end of July. This is the main reason why I think Konami needs to do some balancing right now, because they're probably not going to do it mid-national season. It's going to last from April to July. End of nationals, we are gonna get another ban list. Within that time period, we have Cyberstorm Access, and right at the end, we also have the new Battles of Legend Monstrous Revenge. So the main concern here is that the decks are pretty much gonna stay the same, besides maybe we're gonna see something with Super Heavy Samurai, Branded, and maybe Mana Dome throughout that time with Cyberstorm Access, but this is the last chance to release a ban list, I think. End of YCSs, and beginning of national season. And if they do release it, I think it's going to look something like this. Before we begin, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe if you're new. As always, let's kick this off. If you want 5% off any single or sealed product, head over to tier0games.com and use code GALZO5 at checkout. So I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. First of all, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. I'm designing a video as we speak on what happens if Gimmick Puppet gets banned. A few things happen. I think that Branded Expulsion is not necessarily the problem. I think that since Branded are getting a new Albion fusion monster that has the same effect, I don't think any of them are going to get touched. So from my research, and I've done a lot, there's only one monster that closely resembles Gimmick Puppet, which is DD Orthros. And since it's not as easy to send to the graveyard as Gimmick Puppet, I think that they might just go ahead and ban Gimmick Puppet because it doesn't have a very good replacement. DD Orthros is harder to get to the graveyard. You can of course get it with Branded Fusion, but Gimmick Puppet Nightmare can be sent off of Grand Guignol, which makes it so much more easier to pull off. And since Expulsion and the new fusion monster do the same thing, there's no real reason why you would even ban either of them. And the other replacements, even though they're toxic like Ra's Disciple, Edo the Magical Supreme Force, they are more easily outable than this. This is unoutable once it hits the field. I think this is how they're going to solve it, and I think the hammer is going to go towards Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Blaster and Gazelle, we saw them both getting some slack in the latest OCG list. I think Gazelle, almost every time I do one of these predictions, I put Gazelle to 2 because I think it's time, and it might be time to talk about Blaster as well. I don't think Gazelle at 2 does too much. I think Salad is strong. It's reasonable, but I don't think in the current metagame it will do too much with Gazelle at 2, and you can try and see how that will go. Honestly, Blaster, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't really see what's the appeal, and I think maybe not title, but all of the other Dragon Rulers can just go to 1. I think Tempest is already there. Blaster can definitely go. Maybe we're going to follow the OCG here. And then it's time to talk about Fenrir and Unicorn. So what the OCG did when they first hit Kashtira is, following a pretty substantial ban list hitting tier limits, they also hit Kashtira with Fenrir, Unicorn, and the field spell going to 1. I think Kashtira Theosis might have. I don't really remember. Leave it down in the comments below. But I know that the field spell and both of these boss monsters, like main starters to the deck, got limited to 1. I think looking at what happened with tier elements, I think there is a reasonable assumption to be made that the field spell is not going to be the one getting hit. I think the field spell might be also something of a monetary value that they reprint later. But in general, I think that with AFD in the game, it won't really make a difference when the field spell is at 1. I think that Fenrir and Unicorn are such strong cards. Unicorn is a full combo starter, and it also has an effect of ripping cards from the extra deck. Fenrir itself also very, very good removal, banishing face down. And also, like the main searcher for the deck. I think if you limit both of these, it doesn't kill the deck, it doesn't kill the lines, it just hits the consistency, because you're going to get to these. You might need to play the deck a little bit differently, you might need to adjust the ratios, you might need to play it with other engines and not as a pure variant, but I think Kashtira is very toxic, and there's no real reason why these cards should be a 3. I think we might follow the OCG here and just limit both of them. I don't think the field spell is going to be something that is going to get limited. For now, I think this is a pretty good hit for the national season. After that, the deck is probably going to get slaughtered a bit harder. Masterpiece. Do you really think this card should remain banned? I'm going to put it to 1. Honestly, I do want to put it at 3, but I think 3 is too much. I think that I don't really see a reason why this card needs to stay in the ban list. We saw in the latest ban list a lot of cards just getting immediately moved to 3, because Konami, I think, is trying to, empty the ban list a little bit. Just like take stuff off Destrudo, fine to 3, Resort, fine to 3. I think this jump might be reasonable. I think this is not a good card in today's metagame. This does not compare, even though it's unaffected by a lot of things. It does not compare to, strong, very, very strong cards that we have in today's metagame. They don't care about this card. And maybe it's something for the fans, even. Diagram is still a 1, so I think they might still be afraid of Draco. And maybe Masterpiece could be like a push in the right direction. Maybe revive an old strategy. I don't know. Zeus, I would definitely say that there are other things in the ban list here that might make you think differently about what I'm going to say now, but I think Zeus is a card that should be at 1. I know that a lot of people in the comments are going to say, wait, but you only play 1 Zeus, you only need 1 Zeus. I think that it's the same as what happened with Shooting Riser Dragon, for example. I think that even though a card is played at 1, it does not mean that it should not be at 1. Right now, a lot of people are playing 2 Zeus, mainly because of Kashtira, because they know it's such a strong boss monster, and they don't want their second copy to be banished, or their only copy to be banished if they're only playing 1. I think that Zeus is one of the strongest boss monsters in the game. I think like tied up there with Access Code, maybe a little bit better. And both of these cards should have some sort of limitation to them, because they are just too powerful, in my opinion. And even if we're going to talk about Diablosis, and maybe if it gets banned in my predictions, it still needs to go to 1. I think it's the healthy thing to do. Then we have D-Barrier, which you might call me biased. I think that D-Barrier doesn't win against every deck. It's not an auto win. But I think D-Barrier is a floodgate that is lingering, and it is now searchable with things like Labyrinth, and you can just recycle it every turn. I think that if Labyrinth remains in the meta, and I don't see a reason why not, because it's a super oppressive deck, this is a very good hit to Labyrinth. I think Eradicator is still nasty, Skill Drain is still nasty, but I think banning this, again, look at the hits right here, and we're going to look at the third hit in a second. They are not direct hits to the deck, and this is how it started with Tier Elements. Tier Elements, their first hit was Snow. After that, Curious, a little too little too late kind of situation, but still did not hit the cards directly. And I think that's what's going to happen with the Dimensional Barrier, to hinder Labyrinth just a little bit, because it doesn't need to be hindered a lot. And the final one is going to be banning Diablosis. This card should not exist. This card should not work in synergy with the rest of the Kashtira strategy. Banning this card prevents people from locking you to 5 or 6 zones, which they can do today. And look at your opponent's extra deck and banish a card face down. Then you can banish 3 more cards. Then you can banish more cards. Then block zones. It doesn't make sense that this card exists. I mean, this was a prize card. It was very, very strong at the beginning. Now, not every Kashtira line goes for this, but preventing Kashtira from locking 5 makes the deck a lot more reasonable to deal with, in my opinion. I think banning all of these just bans the ugliest thing that each of these decks can do without hitting any card with the name Branded Labyrinth or Kostra on it, like making it forbidden. But I don't think that's going to be the case for Sprite, because Sprite already got a major hit, and this might be the most contentious point that I'm going to make, but Sprint might need to get banned. And I know this is probably going to be the hardest point to deal with for most of you. I was contemplating between banning Sprint, limiting Starter, or Jet like they did in the OCG. I think that the deck doesn't necessarily need a consistency hit, but I think that Sprint, currently, the Springed Angler combo is a bit too much. Maybe something will get hit across that chain of monsters that works with Sprint. I think that Sprint is, it's a Lavalval chain for level 2s. We are coming into a format where level 2s make a lot more difference with things like Super Heavy Samurai Bike, Assault Synchron, things that you do want to be in the graveyard sometime that make Sprint very strong. I think that Sprint and alongside Sprint, Cherubini are both cards that in context are just bannable. Too generic, too powerful, and in the context of a metagame, things like Cherubini, Isolde, for example, Halki Fibrax, those things can just get banned because they're too good. I think that now with Tier Limits kind of gone, it makes it harder to ban Sprint, but I think that hitting only Sprint is the hit that Sprite needs to remain in check, because Sprite can still play very, very well with other engines as well without Sprint. They don't need Sprint because Sprint is just too much for the deck, in my opinion. I am going to put Sky Striker Mobilize Engage to 2 because I do that every prediction, and I think that since Sky Striker does absolutely nothing, and with Orcust kind of banned and Thunder, I don't see Striker being played as like an engine in any other deck. Boost the deck, give it a second engage, I think it will be good. Spellbook of Judgment, honestly, it might go to 2. I would say just put it to 3. Nobody's playing this. I mean, it is seeing some play, but I don't think it's broken by any means. It's like sometimes a rogue, makes it through in a regional, but nothing major. Glow Up Bulb. We might follow the OCG here. I think this card is... I think it's fine to come back. There are other cards that are being released soon in Cyberstorm and then Battles of Legend, Monstrous Revenge, that are better, in my opinion, than this card, that are more bannable. This card has synergy with some of those strategies in Cyberstorm. It's fine to come back, and I think it should. Snatch Steal. People are gonna probably hate me about this, but I don't see a reason why this card is banned, to be honest. Like, it's searchable, that's true, but it's still very vulnerable. I think that there's no way this will happen, but just looking at the list, I think that Konami can cut some slack there. And the last point that I wanted to make is about Runic Fountain. I will preface this by saying that Konami in the TCG does not limit cards by starting them off at 2, then going to 1 like they do a lot in the OCG. OCG start off with like Branded Opening to 2, Havness to 2. Semi-limited in the TCG is almost absolutely 100% reserved for cards that were limited and now are semi-limited. I don't remember any card that went from 3 to 2 when I was playing the game. Leave it down in the comments below and remind me of something that you remember that happened this way. I think that Runic Fountain to 2 makes it so I would honestly put it to 1. But I think that if Sprite is getting a major hit such as Sprint, maybe like Runic Fountain could just go to 2. It's another Zeus situation because, people are playing 2 anyway. So I do want to put it at 1. I don't think it's very realistic because, but on the other hand, I don't think it's very realistic that Konami puts the card that is a 3 directly to 2. So do let me know what you guys think about that, because this, I do want to hit Runic in some way, and I think it should get hit. The engine is just like too big, too powerful, but honestly, we'll have to wait and see. These are my takes. I don't think these are 100% predictions. I don't think all of this is going to happen, but I think there are very solid points here that are reasonable, and some of them are much more copium, and I understand that, and that's fine. I do want to know what you guys agree or disagree with down in the comments below. Let me know, what do you think is actually getting banned, limited, or semi-limited, and what do you think is coming off the list in the next ban list. Thank you so much for watching. As always, leave a comment down below, like the video, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.